Hello, my friends, and welcome to Radio NIGP. I'm Bobby Tolston, and today's segment will discuss hiring for passion, training for competency, and retaining with incentives. Due to the pandemic, many procurement agencies are looking to fill the void left by a mass exodus of procurement professionals. This exodus has caused a knowledge gap within many agencies. Agencies are now filling those voids with new talent. When looking to fill vacancies, hiring managers must consider multiple variables. For instance, how will the agency attract? How will we train? And more importantly, how will we maintain our existing employees with possibly some incentives? Finding new talent has never been easy, but it seems more difficult now than before. So if you're looking for tools, tips, and strategies on how to fill your vacancies, stick around and listen to the rest of our show. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we look to see you back here again real soon.
Hello, NIGP colleagues out there. This is coming to you, Radio NIGP again. This is David Nash, and I'm here with Don Buffum. And our guest this month is John Pellegrino. He's the Director of Purchasing and Contracting for the County of San Diego. And John, I understand you've got a lot going on with getting employees these days. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Thanks, Dave. And Don, thanks for inviting me. It's an interesting time. We're, I'll call it post-pandemic here. And my organization, during the pandemic, obviously, procurement was never more in the forefront of our business than during our response and recovery. However, so our spend greatly increased, as well as our, every one of our customers, the sense of urgency of getting things done increased. So I will be increasing my staff over the next, in my upcoming budget year, by 10%. I'm at 68 folks right now in the procurement organization. We spend a little bit over $2 billion a year. And I spent $2 billion as of December of last year. So I expect to probably end up at 2.5 this year. So with that, I'm going to be adding about 6 more people to our team. So what's the challenging part about that is not only I have new folks to integrate into our organization, where do I get folks that have the background and the passion to do procurement as a profession? But also I have an existing team that has been somewhat changed over the relative past couple 3 years with retirements and maybe some more people leaving for other opportunities or so I'll call it a compounding effect with my organization. So it's not just the new staff that I'm adding, but it's also filling gaps that might be left by promotions in some cases and also other retirements.
Okay. Well, as you're looking for people, what is it you're looking for? What are the criteria you're looking for?
Well, my team and myself, we call it the 3 A's. We call it aptitude, attitude, and adaptability. We live in a world now that procurement is a world and a science in and of itself. The processes that we have to learn to do our jobs effectively and efficiently. Most of all, we're looking for great attitudes, people that have the aptitude to learn the processes and implement the process, the positive attitude to deliver world-class services and procurement services to sometimes difficult customers. And then lastly, adaptability. Case in point with the COVID emergency, we had to adapt very quickly and we're successful in doing that. So when we come to the office, I'm looking for someone that is not coming to the office and said, well, I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday or the day before or even the week before. because chances are there's something new on our plate today. So that's where I call my 3 A's.
Yeah, it's interesting. I call it, hiring for passion and train for the competencies. But yeah, looking for people that really want to be there. And I love the adaptability part, because that's part of our life is change. Every day is a new day. Dave, do you have anything you wanted to ask?
Yeah, what are your applicants looking for? Is that changed over time as well?
Oh, most definitely. And I will, again, it sounds like a broken record, but post-pandemic, employees expect flexibility in their work schedules, adaptability in their, myself, I will say I've adapted over the last 2 years. I was, by my very nature, an in the office type guy. I wanted everybody in the staff meeting. I was always a big, in the office. That has evolved now. Dave, staff, their first question is, do I get to work remotely?
Yeah.
And fortunately for my organization in the county, we have adopted a formal telecommuting plan that allows me as one of the directors to do what makes sense for my organization. So I will never go back to 100% remote, knock on wood that I don't have to.
Yeah.
However, I am also, right now we're on a 3-2 schedule. 3 days in the office, 2 remote work, and I let my senior managers figure out what the continuity is best for the team. But that's really a new requirement for our staff is they ask, and I've had people say, not for us, but say, well, if you don't let me telework at least 1 day a week, I don't want the job.
Yeah.
So are you finding people that have been in purchasing in the past, or where are you going for your these new people? Where are you finding them?
Well, in the past, Don, I think I used to be of the mindset, and I think this is the reality, is people came to us. When I put out a solicitation, a job opportunity, and maybe posted it on NIGP's website for career opportunities, I would get, a dozen or so applicants that were great. Okay. And go from there. That's changed now. So really, because of 2 reasons. I think our workforce has become more senior, and those people that are, I'll call it, already in the workforce and transitioning to other roles is a smaller pool. And so we have a newer workforce that's coming out of schools and universities that really don't have training in purchasing per se. But for example, we've made a relationship with University of San Diego here, and that has a supply chain management program. And they have graduates that are coming out, and we just hosted a hiring workshop with them. So they'll be graduating in May, and I'm going to be, as I said, I'm going to be hiring about 6 people in the June-July timeframe. And there was a fair amount of excitement that the timing was perfect. They're going to be graduates, and they're going to be looking for my job posting. So I'm really starting to look into other sort of to grow my own, if you will, or to grow people with, again, the 3 A's as our next generation of procurement officers.
Dave, did you have something? I've got one more question I would ask.
Go ahead.
Somebody recently told me that they're in a situation now where they're hiring people, anticipating that new people are only going to stay 24 to 36 months. Are you seeing that? Are you anticipating that you're going to hire people and then they're going to move on? And it sounds like a revolving door issue.
Exactly.
Well, what I will say is I won't tell you that it won't happen, but I will tell you that myself and my executive team, we talk about, and we have created a culture that is such that people are going to want to stay with us.
Okay.
The way I've organized we just had an executive leadership meeting yesterday, and we talked about mentoring and future staffing and how to allow people growth opportunities within our own organization. we've all faced it, right? We've all faced it in our career. Gee, I'm ready for a new challenge.
Yep.
I need a new challenge. I would like a promotion. There's no place to go. So we look outside. So our challenge is to give those opportunities, try to develop those opportunities within my organization so they don't have to leave me and then come back later on, which we've had some of those. People have left us, gone to the city, and then came back. And there's some of that that's always going to happen, but we're going to try to manage that internally. So we're not that's a pretty short life cycle that you mentioned there.
Fantastic.
Well, I certainly appreciate the time you spent with us today, and some of this really sounds like it's good information that other folks can use out there. So this is Dave Nash and Don Buffum and John Pellegrino signing off. See you next time on Radio NIGP.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
You too.
Hello, and welcome to Chapter Updates. Just like the staffing challenges that occur in our agencies, chapters can experience volunteer challenges. Some of the incentives I've seen to encourage volunteerism include scholarships or a scholarship points program, team building efforts, award programs, and more. Inviting someone for a free meeting and a meal can be a big draw. Sometimes, inviting people to join the team for a simple effort like making name tags or decorations brings them in, and once they get a spark of the volunteer spirit, they ignite with a passion for supporting our profession. Today, we will hear from a couple of chapters who have well-established programs for training and growing their leaders and encouraging them to stay. Now, a penny for your thoughts. Join us as we turn the page to hear the chapterific ways these chapters build their teams.
Hi, my name is Carl Bile. I'm the president of the North Carolina Association of Governmental Purchasing, otherwise known as NCAGP. I'm also a procurement analyst for the Mecklenburg County Procurement Office in Charlotte, North Carolina. Today, I'd like to talk to you about succession planning for your chapter of NIGP, for your association. With NCAGP, being on our board is a 7-year commitment. With our board, you don't get elected to a specific position, you are elected to come onto the board. So on our board, we start off as a 3rd-year director. After your first year, you become the 2nd-year director. Then a new 3rd-year director is elected onto the board. For your 3rd year, you become the 1st-year director. In your 4th year, you become the secretary. This is when the real fun starts. After you've been secretary for a year, you'll be vice president, then president, and then past president. The reason why we like this model of succession is it allows you 3 years as a 3rd year, 2nd year, and 1st year director to learn how the organization works. You don't actually have any responsibilities other than to learn, and of course, you are a voting member of our board. Once you become secretary is when the real fun starts. You have to take the minutes, all kinds of fun stuff. And you'll have 2 people, the vice president and president, as well as the past president, that have recently done it within the last year or 3. So if you have any questions, you know exactly who you can go to. In fact, we even encourage the current secretary to mentor the upcoming secretary, which would be the 1st-year director at that time. So as we get towards the end of that year, we encourage the secretary to start showing the upcoming secretary how to do the job. As a president, one of the things that I do, as well as that my predecessor did, is I share all of my emails around association business with my vice president so they can see everything that I've had to deal with. Again, the whole idea behind this model is so that by the time you get to being a secretary and then vice president and president, you have these great people that are all around you that can show you what needs to be done. You've seen it being done for several years. With all this being said, I would encourage you to set up a succession plan within your association. It doesn't have to be the same as NCAGP, but ours is a great model for showing the benefits of succession planning. If you have any questions or comments, I'm free to take any phone calls or emails, and NIGP can supply you with that contact information. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tabitha Friedman with the Central Florida chapter of NIGP. We're here to discuss the Central Florida chapter's Officer Boot Camp program. This activity is facilitated by past board members for newly elected officers. The purpose is to share chapter knowledge and prepare the officers for their new term. The Chapter Officer Boot Camp consists of the following areas: a board of directors, responsibilities and duties, committees and task force, meeting schedules, bylaws, policies and procedures, strategic plan, budget, task and timelines, code of conduct, chapter and NIGP forms, agreement, chapter of the year application, and NIGP chapter resources. For your own chapter, you may decide to encompass all of these areas or just some of those areas. Based on your outline, a PowerPoint is developed, binders of information are compiled, and a USB drive is provided to the officers. The engagement should occur close to the beginning of the new officer term. An in-person location is selected, and we meet on a Saturday. We make a day of it with breakfast and lunch. I think the most important thing it does is it builds that team. It also starts those creative juices flowing.
Okay.
I think what retains people is not necessarily the beginning, but what they experience as they're doing and how they feel with that team. It is a wonderful team building event, an excellent forum to ask the questions, and familiarizes your officers with the chapter operations. If you have any questions, you are welcome to reach out to me. My current email is president@cfcnigp.org. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Legally Speaking. This is Mike Beavis, and I'm joined by John Walton, and we're here to talk about teleworking and virtual workplaces and other things like that and how they relate to the law. And first, what I'd like to point out is that before you can even think about whether you want to telework or whether you can telework, you need to have your processes and your bid processes and your RFP processes on an electronic platform, and you need to have electronic signatures. We've talked about those issues in other presentations and in other forums, and we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the other stuff that matters. And the other stuff that matters are things that relate a lot to HR and a lot to workplace issues. And I know John's got some observations he'd like to bring up. And from now on, we're going to be talking mostly to supervisors. But John, would you like to talk about some of these things supervisors need to know?
Yeah, I think it's helpful to kind of realize what the grab bag of issues are that are out there. And some of them are driven by the fact that we might have people on our teams who are located in different states in particular, not just around even within one state, but in other states. And that brings up the idea of whose state's law applies when you've got somebody located in a different state than where the employer is. So it might cover issues like overtime. Those can vary from state to state. If somebody's not an employee, but a part-time contractor, how you do your 1099s that you issue, laws on unemployment compensation, workers' compensation, if there's any registration or certification requirements, taxes. There's all sorts of stuff that depends on what the laws in that state say. So we have to look at the actual language of each particular law. Another one is just the difference in like paid leave laws or discrimination laws. During the pandemic, a lot of states and municipalities created new obligations around one or the other of those. Think about if somebody got COVID-19, could they get paid leave for that? Under some states, yes, others, no. Same thing about
time off for vaccinations. So there's lots of laws that you need to keep track of. Mike, there's other issues besides the ones I mentioned, right?
Sure, and maybe one of the biggest one is taxes, right?
Yeah.
Whose taxes do you have to pay, and whose taxes does your employer have to withhold? And do they have to withhold different taxes in different places? For example, professional athletes have taxes withheld in all the places where they earn money, which is totally different than most people who aren't athletes like us, because we have our taxes withheld in the place where we live. But we might live in a place that's not the place where we work. So it gets very confusing. But what I want to point out to everybody is, even though these are confusing issues and challenging issues, they have been resolved, right? People have worked in states they don't live in for a long time. I grew up in the DC area where people worked in DC and lived in Maryland and Virginia. People paid taxes in Maryland and Virginia, even though they worked in DC. And that's the way it worked. So it's been resolved, but there are some new issues that arise with actually teleworking, and those are things around safety and workplace organization and workplace supplies. And John, I know you had some thoughts about those issues.
Well, it is helpful to just kind of skim over those for those that have a supervisory position. So how can you evaluate your employees' performance when you can't really even physically observe them as much? That's one thing which may go to performance plans, but it can also touch on things like wage and hour issues for your employees who are not non-exempt employees, who are not being paid a salary, but instead being paid on an hourly basis. How do they clock in and out of the office? You need to keep monitoring and addressing this issue if you haven't addressed it in the past. Now, reimbursing employees for cost directly associated with telecommuting brings up all the agency policies. So you're going to want to have a policy to deal with that. Same thing with handling information and security concerns when you're a step removed from the office the way you used to be. What's your policy on that? And that can even show up in things like how you react during meetings and during video conferencing. It's more than just information security, but it's also even gets into things like inappropriate comments or conduct during virtual meetings. So that goes to things like equal employment opportunity and anti-harassment policies. And the same thing with workers' compensation. There's issues about whether a remote worker getting injured while they're working at home, but they're on office time, does that count? Or does that not count? Is the employer responsible? And different states have seen it different ways. There are court cases going both directions. So with this big grab bag of stuff, Mike, what do we want to say to pull it all together?
Yeah, and I think the important thing for people to know is that you're listening to two people who telework 100% of the time. I mean, we go in for meetings when we need to, but we telework most of the time. And our staffs telework all the time. And my staff is in different states. John's staff is in different states, and we manage to do it. Now we do it with some protections. Like I signed a 7-page telework agreement that covered things like how clean my floor was and issues about dress codes and all those kinds of things. So what we're going to do is this: we're going to tell you it's doable. And if it's something you want to pursue, you can do it. And we're going to post on Insight some sample telework agreements and checklists and links to articles and things like that, so you can research things for yourself and get more familiar with it. Because in the time we're allowed for this session, we can't come anywhere near covering it all. And to be honest, you don't need to be an expert on HR laws. You need to know how to work electronic signatures and electronic RFPs and bids and make sure that stuff's working, and rely on your HR folks to take care of the rest. And with that, we're going to say thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again next month or in future episodes of Legally Speaking. Thanks, and thanks for everything you brought us, John. Bye.
Hi, this is Kirk Buffington with Radio NIGP. Normally at this time, I would be having a discussion with an NIGP staff member, or a member who is part of the governance of NIGP. But this month, I'm here to let you know about next month's interview. I will have the pleasure of discussing the upcoming forum with Carrie Winter. Carrie is the Director of Events and Program Delivery at NIGP and the go-to person for everything forum. We will discuss NIGP's first face-to-face forum since 2019 in Boston, and I know I am really excited about being back together with all our procurement community. So tune in next month to hear about all the plans for the upcoming forum. See you next month.
Hello, my name is Jenny Justiniano, and welcome to this monthly edition of Visionary Views. Today we have with us Jen Myers, Procurement Manager at the City of Tucson, Arizona. Welcome to Radio NIGP.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Of course, we are so excited to learn and hear more about what your procurement office experiences have been like in the last couple of years.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. The past couple of years have definitely been different for a lot of us. The City of Tucson went from being fully in the office to immediately at home for the pandemic, where we did not previously allow telecommuting. So that was very different for us. And we were still accepting paper proposals prior to the pandemic. So coming from that and quickly switching to electronic proposals was definitely something different for us that we kind of had to change gears in the last couple of years. It's been great though.
Awesome. I also understand that, one of the biggest things as a leader, and I can't remember, Jen, remind me how long you've been in this role?
I've been with the City of Tucson for 9 years, and I started out as an administrative assistant with the procurement department, and within those 9 years have moved my way up to a procurement manager.
Congratulations on that. And I hear and I know you're doing a fabulous job. And I know in our little preparation for this interview, you had mentioned that strategic plan was one of those, big goals you had. And with the pandemic coming on, you basically had to put it in the parking lot. And now that you are fully staffed, what's that refocus going to look like?
So when we started our strategic plan, it was shortly after the leadership summit in Anaheim, and we were super excited. We came back, like everyone says, we're conferenced. We went to a conference, and now we have all of the motivation and excitement and inspiration. And so we came back and we were like, we need to really sit down and work on what it is that we want now that we are fully staffed. The pandemic, we went into that not fully staffed and trying to work through all of the different projects, all of the different initiatives, working through federal funds, new ARPA funds that, many people are working through, trying to figure out what terms and conditions needed to be included. And so we came back and we were like, okay, we have brand new staff. We have 22 people. Of those 22 people, more than half of them have less than a year experience in procurement. And we started out on this focus of let's interview our customers, find out what they need. And as we have worked through our strategic plan, we've learned that although we do need to learn what our customers need and want, we need to focus on our staff first and getting them up to speed, getting them trained, working through Procurement 101, understanding their role in the profession, using NIGP for different trainings, using our local chapter to train as well, of course, and on-the-job training, which has been phenomenal. And our first round of people that we hired just over a year ago are soaring. They're doing excellent. We've brought in a few more since then, and they're right behind them, coming up to speed very quickly. And we've learned that our approach has changed on training over the last, 14, 15 months. Instead of saying, okay, let's teach you how to do these things. Instead, okay, we're going to walk you through this, and then you're going to actually do it, and we're going to be here holding your hand. And it's been phenomenal watching these new professionals just grow into their role.
That's so awesome. It's like working from the inside out, right?
Right.
I mean, we talk about, keeping this work-life balance, but at the same time in the staff and really implementing that. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that with our audience. I know that a lot of these words, I'm going to throw them out at you that's come through, right before the pandemic hit: restructure, class, retired, turnover. And I feel like, the things that you just kind of hit there with the new staffing and bringing them for 2022 and beyond, that's really something that will continue to make your leadership style really flourish in this role. So congratulations on that. I'm super excited for you. And I want to hear more about that later, but obviously we only have a few minutes. But again, just talking about, I know you mentioned too, as part of this training, is the OpenGov software that you guys implemented, and how that's going to propel your workload organization. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we started working with OpenGov a couple of years ago for templates only. They have this online system that you put your template in, and it asks you a few questions, then it builds your solicitation. And we were like, this is going to make our lives so much easier. But we didn't really embrace it. And so we had the system for almost 2 years, and we only had one template in there. And we kept saying, we're going to work on it, we're going to work on it, we're going to work on it. And so we actually went back to their staff and said, we need to roll back and do a re-implementation of this. And we started that in November last year. And we have finalized templates for things that we never had templates for. It's been phenomenal to work through those and work hand in hand with our attorney's office, which, being in procurement, people are like, you have an attorney that will help you? We always laugh about that thing. But they have been phenomenal in helping us get those templates up to date, getting them out for staff to use. Then we've moved our online bidding into the system as well. So we're receiving proposals through the system. We're evaluating through that system. We are awarding in the system, and we are moving all of our database records into that system. And so that has been quite the feat to accomplish, but we're excited. And later this month, for Procurement Month, the City of Tucson has been doing a lot of trainings for our end users, and we are going to be using one of those trainings to roll out OpenGov to our end users to say, this is how you're going to start sending things to procurement. This is how we'll be notified when you need to do solicitations. And we're going to work hand in hand together in this system to get that out to vendors. And so we're really excited about moving that forward. And it plays into our strategic plan, because it did help us get updated templates that we could train staff on. We're moving into having more of one system than multiple systems. Build your solicitation in here and then publish it in this one, and then put the record into this one. We had 3 and 4 different systems, and now we're getting closer to just one system, which staff are very excited about.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great to hear. And I know if folks want to ask you a question, that you'll be available to send them your tips and tricks that you've learned from this new platform. And it's just great. And you're just an inspiration as a leader, not just in the public procurement realm, but really as a colleague. I'm so blessed to have known you and kind of have watched your journey grow. And so that's why we thought you'd be a great pick for this month's Visionary Views. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing Radio NIGP audience next month.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Tech Talk. This month, Tech Talk is going to slide a little away from our normal subject matter to focus on Radio NIGP's monthly topic, solving staffing challenges. As the procurement profession continues to grow, the shortage of staffing is becoming more and more of an issue. For those of us that support specialties, such as technology or construction, It is even more difficult to replace lost staff with experienced replacements.
You know, Christy, this makes it more apparent that procurement staff should be cross-trained in every aspect and all types of procurement: goods, non-professional services, professional services, complex technology, and construction. Succession planning and having backups in case of absences or shortages is vital to the overall success of any procurement team. Since backups may not work consistently with professional services, technology, or construction, having a series of checklists and resources to support staff when they fill in can ease the stress and foster that team environment.
I agree, Stephanie. Leaders should encourage ride-alongs or shadowing, better known as cross-training, when a team member is working on a complex procurement. Additionally, leaders should send staff to training such as the specialization courses offered by NIGP to assist with the cross-training. More importantly, staff workload should be adjusted to support growth in new areas. Another way to adjust for staffing shortages is to have regular meetings with your end-using agencies to build procurement plans and set realistic expectations for how procurement can best support their agency and aid in the building relationships necessary to make procurement life cycles successful.
You know, Christy, as you and I have discussed before, team members need to really speak up for themselves and ask for help when they're drowning. If you're like most of us, you may not realize that leadership doesn't know when you're overwhelmed and when you need assistance. So you have to be the squeaky wheel sometimes. You have to be your own best advocate. So thank you. And we look forward to providing you with more insights in next month's Radio NIGP. Thanks, Christy. Bye.
See you later.
Hello, and welcome to Way to Grow, an NIGP mentorship moment. Today, our Way to Grow segment focuses on the impact of mentorship on entity staffing solutions. An active mentoring program can certainly make a difference to organizations who are looking for solutions to their succession planning dilemmas. So today, we're happy to welcome Nathan Dow, NIGP CPP, CPPO, CPPB, CPM, and APP, the Procurement Administrator with the City of Tucson, Arizona Business Services Department. You may be interested to know that Nathan has the distinction of being the co-creator of the National Professional Buyers Day, which we celebrated last month, along with one of his colleagues way back in 2015. And the idea of that was to bring recognition to the dedicated people, that would be you folks out there, on the front lines of our profession. Nathan was also honored as NIGP's Professional Procurement Manager of the Year in 2019. So congratulations on that, and welcome to Way to Grow, Nathan.
Well, thank you, Keith. It's great to be here.
I have a few questions for you, if you don't mind here.
Absolutely.
This particular subject. First question is that I understand you've recently had some extensive staff turnover in your organization and had to reimagine your operations. And what types of challenges have you faced in terms of succession planning?
Yeah, so it's just for a number of reasons, a reorganization that happened above us, some retirements, natural attrition. It was sort of a perfect storm of sorts, and we found ourselves just having lost a number of staff members over the years. It was a little bit impacted by the fact that we had the pandemic and our agency, embracing for an economic downturn, put on a hiring freeze during that pandemic. So once we found that we actually did not have the economic downturn we were bracing for, thankfully, they lifted the hiring freeze, and I started hiring like crazy. And that really, I would say, preparing for those recruitments in mid to late 2020, that's really started the current phase of the succession planning that we're in right now. But we found ourselves in a moment where about 50% of our staff have just around a year of experience, give or take. So that's a whole lot of newness on our team. The bench is not, too deep right now in terms of, years of experience and expertise. So it just made staff development and succession planning, very, very critical for us right now. Also, having people join the team during the pandemic was an interesting dynamic because, one of the things that the pandemic brought us was remote work, which is sometimes good and in other ways sometimes bad, like everything, pros and cons, right? So, gone are the days where your whole team is here in the office and you can have those spontaneous doorway conversations that turn into those spontaneous teaching moments. So, we're also having to train, 50% of the team who's brand new, and even they were remote, and so were we. And so, it was a bit challenging.
Okay. Well, this is a mentorship segment. So I wonder, do you believe that you've been able to use mentorship and other training methods to establish a culture of learning and development in your organization now?
I do. I would not say that we have a structured mentorship program per se, but more, I think there is a spirit of mentorship amongst the entire team here. It's just something that's been ingrained in all of us. So, one thing we do is we get everybody plugged into NIGP right away because we want our new employees, seeing that there's a bigger profession outside the four walls of this organization. And so we get them plugged in right away. Usually within their first week or two, I give them an overview, but I also like to have somebody from the member council or maybe a chapter ambassador come and make a presentation to our new folks, just so that they're hearing it from somebody besides me and they're getting a different perspective. We also make it very easy for them to participate in NIGP as far as attending the monthly chapter meeting of our local chapter here. We make it very easy for that to happen. It's all on work time. We make it easy for them to volunteer. We know that those volunteer activities take time, but we definitely see the value in spending time volunteering for our professional association. And then we also make it a point to send our contract officers to a number of just foundational NIGP classes. We always have like a set list of classes we try to get them through within their first year here. Just so we build that foundation, or we give them that foundation upon which we can build in the future. And then I'd say we try to support people financially and otherwise to get certified. And so we're always encouraging our folks to try to get certified as soon as they can. So I do believe we've shown our team members that here at this city, we truly, value professional development, and we try to mentor them along that path.
Okay. Well, finally, what types of knowledge are you attempting to impart to your staff right now? And for those that are interested in moving up to higher roles in your entity?
Well, so it's interesting. I've been here in my organization for 21 years. So I find myself sort of being the elder somehow. I don't know how this happened. I blinked and, all those years went by. But so I definitely feel a responsibility to try to impart as much institutional knowledge as I can, because it's great that I have it, but it's not good if I'm the only one who has it up here, right? So I really try to impart as much institutional knowledge as I can to the rest of my team. One of the things I take on personally is trying to help our new folks understand our procurement code. So at the City of Tucson, we have a city ordinance called the Tucson Procurement Code, but every agency has their own. And this is that lengthy, sort of dry legalese document that doesn't, always resonate. And we used to tell folks in the first week here, read the code, and just make sure you know it. And while there is value in that, what we've since decided to start doing is I actually walk them through it chapter by chapter. So I ask them to read it first, and then I sit down with them and I try to sort of make it tangible and real, go through some real life examples, let them know, here's when this is actually going to come up for you, and that sort of thing. Lastly, I would say I really try to impart to them just the tips and tricks of the trade. There's a lot of things we learned the hard way. And, as somebody who's been at this for a number of years, if there's anything I can take from my experience and try to give to our newer folks to help them so that they don't have to learn it the hard way, I definitely want to try to do that. So that's why when they come to ask me a question, they're going to get the whys behind it. They're going to get the answer, the quick answer, but I'm also going to try to take the time to explain the whys behind it. So I would say those are kind of the three things we focus on as we try to mentor our new staff.
That's great. Well, Nathan, I want to thank you for joining us today on Way to Grow. And I just want to remind everybody out there to find the NIGP Mentorship Program on our Facebook page and on the NIGP website at www.nigp.org/events/mentorship. And now, this is Keith Blatz speaking and hoping that you'll join me soon again here on Radio NIGP for our next segment of Way to Grow, and reminding you that this is Radio NIGP.
So this month we are talking about staffing concerns in procurement. For the last few years, there have been so many conversations about the silver tsunami, a lot of people retiring, baby boomers moving out, younger people moving in, the differences between generations and how the older generation will stay in one position for years, whereas the younger generation will change not only positions and workplaces, but also whole careers. And so how are we going to address that? Many of us, I would say that we didn't handle this as properly as we could have. But we also ran into the pandemic, which cut us short in a lot of ways, and it created conditions for people to say, listen, it's time for me to retire. Let me just go on and move on home and be done with it. And so the silver tsunami came a little quicker than we anticipated. So now what do? Right? Well, this month's story is coming to you, ripped from the headlines, from a gentleman very close to me. So I'm not going to say his name because this program is near and dear to my heart. But the station manager asked me to talk about it, and so I am. What happened in this instance was that the hiring manager was up against a wall and needed someone. The person actually had put out a call or the applications, offered someone the job. The person turned around and declined it, and the hiring manager had to start all over again. We're seeing this over and over again. We sit in application status for months waiting for enough applications, good applications for people who are procurement people, or, we can kind of get fit in the mold. It takes forever to get just 3 good ones. And then we go through the process and get really, really excited to hire them. And then their agency doesn't want them to leave. And so they don't. And so now here we are. What do? We put it out again. And that's what happened in this instance. And it came down to 2 really great candidates. And one looked a little better to the hiring manager than the other. And so that's the person that got hired. Now, here's the challenge with hiring people under duress. The person who was hired was not the best person for the job. Remember at last year's forum, we talked about how we hire based on a skill set, based on what we see on a piece of paper, based on what the interview looks like. But we have to remember that the whole person is going to show up for the job. Well, what showed up for the job was someone who was not ethical, and they took advantage of the pandemic to get purchase orders to himself or to someone else who was basically himself. And after they stopped looking, because of course, once you find one thing, you start needling. After they start looking, they found a whole bunch of P-card fraud as well. So what do? It hit the newspapers, it spun out of control, there's argument amongst the board, there's argument inside, the newspaper is naming names all over the place. Procurement people don't want to see their names in the newspaper. And so it's a big old mess. And it's a reminder that we have to be careful with who we hire. Now, our whole jobs actually come to responsibility checks every single day. Where's the responsibility check when it comes to the people that we're going to bring into our organizations? Again, we have to be careful. And so today, my message to you is to consider the big picture and consider your gut and make sure you check those references. In fact, if I were you, I would even implore you to never hire anybody without a panel, because I might miss something that the next person sees. And then when we start digging, we realize that, something went wrong. And so at the end of the day, we want the best people for our jobs. We want seats, bodies in seats, but we got to make sure that it's going to work out for us. Now, again, I'm not sharing who this is, but if you want to send me an email asking me, I'll forward a copy of the actual article to you, because I collect these articles. Why? Because I need a reminder of what can go wrong when our jobs aren't done properly. I promise you, I might look okay in black. Never ever will I look good in orange. Thank you all for listening.
Good day, friends. I hope you've enjoyed this broadcast of Radio NIGP. This topic is certainly one of interest in today's climate. One thing is for sure, our teams are either in a state of change or they will be in the future. Team members simply do not stay the same. Some retire, some move on to other opportunities, and others leave for unforeseen reasons. That being said, there are some things that we can do to build and maintain that culture and environment we want for our organization in the midst of all this change. I would encourage you first to be the organization where everyone wants to be, the place where team members are appreciated for what they do and who they are, the place where members are both seen and heard. Then market the organization. Be present at chapter events, training, and networking opportunities. People are always watching and listening, so make sure that they're hearing about all the good things that you're doing and the amazing organization that you're a part of. That way, when an empty seat does come up, there are people that are eager to get on the bus and take advantage of the opportunity and want to actually be a part of your team. If all you market is negativity or complaints, do you think anyone is going to be excited to join your organization? Are you going to attract the talent that will help take your organization to the next level? I don't think so. Create and cultivate a culture of success. Look for those team members that have a heart for public service and making a difference. Those members that will help you build the culture that you envision, whether it's actually achieved or even if it's a work in progress. You can train for competence, but it can be challenging to teach personality, service, and soft skills. Bless their hearts. Not everybody knows how to play nice in the sandbox. So choose wisely and when you invite people into your organization. Taking the time to find the best fit for your team is worth the investment, even if it takes a bit longer than you like. But remember to do what you can during those times that your team is fully staffed to set your members up for excellence in their current and future roles. And who knows, hopefully those future roles will remain within your organization. Stay encouraged, friends, and continue to create that environment at your organization that naturally attracts, trains, retains, and empowers its members to be the best that they can be. Till next time, friends, have a great day.